Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to Skyblock 1.16. Welcome back indeed. We are back here in the Skyblock world. Stuff is finally starting to grow and today we're going to make some pretty big expansions. For one, this bridge in the sky has been the only thing that has spawned mobs in this entire series, and that is about to change because we are going to start a mob spawner today, which is going to knock your socks off, my friends. It's going to be pretty good. I think it's actually going to be better even than the mob spawner that we made in our first Skyblock series, so there is really no time like the present. I think we should get to it. The first thing we need to do, of course, is make sure that we have a fair amount of cobblestone for this because it's going to require a lot of building blocks. We're also going to need quite a bit of wood as well because we will need trapdoors and things like that we can use to help the mobs fall to their deaths, and so we are going to need to harvest a few resources. So I think what I'm going to do is break into the bone meal that was in one of these chests. I think I left it in this chest over here because this is where the farm is at. Yes, we're going to grow ourselves these trees manually because we need the wood pretty quickly, and thankfully the saplings are cooperating today and I'm not using too much bone meal per sapling here. There we go, got ourselves 4 lovely new trees, and the whole purpose of this, of course, is to get ourselves a mob grinder where we can end up with loads of bones anyway, so using a little bit of bone meal here and there is not going to be such a bad thing. Also gives me more opportunity to try and farm apples out of these trees because, as you can see, I still don't really have a great deal of food, and I could use the bone meal to grow the wheat over there as well. I think I may end up doing that shortly in order to get myself some more seeds to plant and some wheat for bread because, yeah, the food supply here is going to be a bit of a problem. And while we can, of course, just jump off the island with all our goods in a chest, yes, there we go, we got an apple, fantastic. We could just jump off the island and respawn here. I kind of don't want to do that. I'm not playing this in hardcore or anything, but I still feel like a sense of honor should apply to how frequently I end up dying in this series, and there are many ways of avoiding that if we wanted to kind of treat this as though it was a hardcore playthrough, or at least treat it a little bit more realistically, we could say. So we at least managed to get ourselves a couple of apples out of that, which means I'm only a few ham shanks away from being completely full again, and I think we're going to grow a couple more trees here just with the last of our bone meal so that we can get a little bit more wood, because I have a feeling we'll need quite a few trapdoors for this, and then we're going to start working on a way of getting down from the central island here to the level of the void, because once again we're going to need that for later in the series. And while I'm not going to build a mob farm at the level of the void quite yet, we are going to need to get down there a little bit further so that we can make some stuff happen a little later. And I got myself a third apple after all of that, which means, oh, we're so close. So close to having another shank of hunger filled up, but you know what, we are still regenerating health, which is pretty important at this stage. Right, I'm going to replant some of this wheat, which we now have 4 seeds for, so hopefully we should get a little bit more of that. We have 2 wheat. If only I had some cocoa beans that I could use to make some cookies, but I think they're out there on the jungle island somewhere. Speaking of the jungle island, we might get a few melons from there, but we have a few melons that we can replant here already. We'll put 1 there and 1 there. I think we'll grow these in rows. Melons over here, pumpkins over here, and then they can grow to either side. But it looks like this melon stalk is ready to produce a few more melons, and in the meantime, I guess we can snack on those to get our hunger back up to full. Now comes the part that I dread in basically any Skyblock playthrough, because there is so much opportunity for stuff to go wrong, but we're going to have to do it anyway. We need a bucket of lava and a bucket of water, which I'm actually going to get from our little infinite water source over here. And we are going to create a column of cobblestone all the way down to the level of the void. And how we are going to do that is using a lava bucket and a bucket of water. We're going to bridge out, I think, probably from the grass patch here. I think we're going to use this as the center of the world from now on. We're going to bridge out a few blocks here just so it's a little bit further away from the farmland and the wood around it. Oh dear, we have phantoms already. Well, I should have expected that, but luckily it is getting towards morning time and these guys should be burning at some time soon anyway. Should be able to fend them off standing in this little pool of water here. Not that that matters all that much, but man, just as I was about to place the lava as well. It's a good thing I didn't try that at night. And hopefully with morning here, a little bit of fire damage should start to apply. Yes, are we going to get them to drop any phantom membrane though? That is the real question. Don't know if they're going to be able to drop it over the island here or not. Nope, looks like we didn't get any. We didn't get any experience either. Oh gosh, well, our first phantom attack survived, and if we're building down below sea level, we shouldn't have to worry too much about them anyway, but gosh, yeah, that kind of came out of the blue. Anyway, as I was saying, so we don't end up pouring lava anywhere near this frame of wood that we built around the farm, I am going to come out a couple more safety blocks into the void here, and then we're going to build a little platform about 4 blocks long like so, and we're going to tip lava off one end of it, probably here, like so. And the lava is going to spread downwards in a column and is going to spread out 1 block on either side. And it's important here that we do not lose this lava source. We do have a backup lava source still in the nether, of course, and that is the reason I left it in the nether in the first place, is to make sure that we didn't end up losing it and that we had a backup in the event that something did go wrong. But all we need to do for now is wait for this lava source to spread all the way down to the level of the void, where it should kind of completely flatten out and stop falling, and then we can place a bucket of water on this side, and it should convert all of the lava in the middle to cobblestone, allowing us to collect the lava source back up, and then we should have a complete column all the way down to the level of the void that we can start using to build further down in the world. While that's happening, of course, I can harvest this mature wheat, we can get ourselves another melon, and expand our farming operation a little bit here. A couple of seeds there, and a few melon slices for me to eat. We can also make our first loaf of bread, because that's going to be kind of nice to have, and of course we can continue growing wheat here so that we can feed any passive mobs, any cows and sheep and that kind of stuff when they eventually arrive. But oh, after that phantom attack, it does feel good to have a full stomach again. And I will leave the melon slices in here, but we can continue to propagate this farm if we want to grow a few more melons here. It looks like the lava sources down here have completely flattened out now, so all we should need to do is wander over to here. I'm going to place the bucket of water there, and there we go. It creates that column of cobblestone all the way down, and with that, I feel secure in the knowledge that we can bucket up the lava source here and return it to the cobblestone generator, where it will continue to make resources for us, because we'll need a few of those as well. The important thing, as ever, is going to be to remember to return the buckets to the chest when we are not using them, because if I fall off the island, I really don't want to have to deal with getting some more iron, because that's part of the reason we're getting the mob spawner together in the first place, is for those zombie iron ingot drops. But that is a slow process. Until we have an iron golem farm set up, those buckets are probably one of the more precious things I own. So while the water and lava are draining away into the void, I'm going to mine myself a little bit more cobblestone. I already have a few stacks here in my inventory, but we are going to need more than that. So let's do a little bit more work at the cobblestone farm here, and I'll continue grabbing some of this off camera. Nighttime is here, and the phantoms are back. So I'm trying to defend myself. There's only one of them this time, so hopefully it will be fine, because the next stage is to go down into the void, where hopefully the phantoms should not bother me for too much longer, and I'll be able to place all of the cobblestone that I want. There we go, got ourselves some phantom membrane nice and early. That's pretty fun. All right, we'll put that in the chest for later. Maybe we can set up some sort of phantom farm at some point, but Lord knows we ain't going to be doing anything with that until we get brewing or elytra on the go. Having some slow-falling potions for the dragon fight might not be such a bad thing. Anyway, next stage of this process is going to be to make our way down towards the void. We'll put a bucket of water there so that I can make a slow descent. I've got some torches and some cobblestone. Probably going to put everything else except the pickaxe in the chest, so it's not such a bad thing if I end up losing that. And hopefully, if all the water has made it down to void level, which it looks like it has, we can grab some cobblestone and slowly inch our way down here, making sure that we can ease our way out of the water stream if we need to regain a little bit of air. And once we are down at the level of the void, or the lowest point in the world at which we can place blocks, we're going to be making ourselves a platform here from which we will start our mob spawner. Now, this is always the most nerve-wracking part of basically any Skyblock playthrough, but it looks like we have made it. We'll make a couple of blocks platform out in this direction, and then we'll place a torch there. And I think I might end up keeping the water stream in some fashion, but we'll see how we get on with this. We're going to make this platform here a 2-block wide one, because we're going to have a 2x2 of campfires here eventually, which are going to be automatically killing the mobs to obtain those drops. But in the meantime, we're going to make this a manual kill mob farm, because we need some of the manual kill drops that you get from these mob farms, such as, you know, iron ingots from zombies, potentially a lot of very useful drops from witches, maybe some bows, and even some armor from skeletons. Stuff like that is going to be very useful to us in the early stages here. And I should probably bring a crafting table down here so I can make things like slabs in the fullness of time, but we will worry about that in a second. We could use the same lava casting technique to make this little tube down which the mobs are going to be falling, but I think it's probably best to build it up manually for now, just because there is still a little bit of scope for stuff to go wrong if you're not too careful with the lava. And while this is going to cost a lot of cobblestone, it's going to be worth it in the long run. Most importantly, we're going to build the top of this tube up so it stops at Y24. So that is going to be 23 blocks away from where the player is standing, roughly speaking, and which, if they were to fall on that lowest block down there, would actually kill the mobs in one hit using full damage. At least most of them. Witches still have enough health that they would survive a fall like that, but basically we're going to increase the height in there by 1 block and potentially a slab as well, so that most of the mobs are only taking 23 blocks worth of full damage, which should leave them at a one-punch kill, or a single sweep of a stone or even wooden sword should do the job. From these 3 sides here, we're going to extend a platform out 8 blocks, which is the maximum travel a stream of water can have. And around the outside of these, we are going to create channels for water that mobs are going to be falling into from a series of platforms. This mob farm is a little bit different from the mob farm that we made in my original Skyblock series, in that it's going to rely almost entirely on mob pathfinding without any kind of bait. Previously, we used turtle eggs to make sure that we got more zombies falling down inside of here, but this mob farm should reliably get most, if not all, of the mobs that spawn in this farm to fall down into the killing chamber. The reason I say most, if not all, of course, is because this farm potentially has some issues with spiders, and spiders are always an irritation when you're making mob farms like this because of their ability to climb walls, but we might have some ways of dealing with that in the next little while. I am down to about my last stack and a half of cobblestone here, so we are going to need to gather a few more resources, but you can see the basic layout of the farm already. There are these different tubes heading off in different directions. Each of these is going to be filled with water streams that lead to this central hole, which should drop the mobs into the center of the farm there and make them nice and easy for me to kill when standing at the level of the void. So we're going to build up the walls of this by 1 more block before we go and get ourselves the rest of the supplies, and adjacent to each of these we're going to be building platforms for the mobs to walk off into the water streams. And thankfully, thanks to the fact that mobs will try and pathfind to nearby solid blocks, this is actually going to be quite an effective process. So at each of these corners, we're going to expand these platforms out by a couple of blocks, and I'm going to make sure that there are torches around the perimeter here for now, so we don't end up getting anything spawning while I am away from the farm if it is nighttime. Just want to make sure the whole area is adequately lit for the moment. But like I was saying, we're going to have a 3x3 platform on each of these corners here, which is going to be able to spawn lots of good stuff. We will probably leave another gap here. We'll have a 3-block long platform there as well. So that's going to come out by 2 blocks in this direction. And then we're going to do the same on the opposite side, and we're going to have a little 2x2 platform at the end here. And this will roughly be outside of the radius at which natural mob pathfinding is going to happen anyway, so it's probably a good idea just to have a smaller platform at the end there. Because remember that while we need to be 23 blocks away from the farm for mobs to spawn, we will also need to make sure we are within 32 blocks so that the mob's natural pathfinding can happen and we don't end up with mobs just kind of standing around in the farm, not walking into the water streams here. But you can get the general idea of the layout from what we're doing here already. We're going to have walls built up to separate out these sections, and with each of these areas, mobs should try and pathfind to a nearby solid block, and they're going to be pathfinding over rows of trapdoors here, which should just drop them into water streams and carry them down into the central system. Now we need to make the slightly daredevil attempt to get back into this water stream. Yep, there we go, and that can carry us back upwards so I can gather some more resources for this. Having gathered a little bit more cobblestone and not really wanting to deal with phantoms tonight, I'm going to bridge my way out over here a little bit carefully, and we'll probably try and make a lower half slab platform here. Yep, there we go. We can hop down there and make our way over here and make an infinite water source for this farm, and that's going to allow us to fill in the water streams nice and easily without having to return to the central island there. Let's just quickly check the skies to make sure that we're not going to get any phantoms here tonight. Doesn't look like it. So I'm going to block off one of these platforms here to make myself an infinite water source. We just need 1 water source there. We'll pop the torch back down, I guess, there, so that that's lighting up this area of the farm, and this area is looking a little bit dark, so I'll probably do the same over here as well, just to make sure we have some coverage. storage. Here's the bit where I need to be a little bit sneaky, grab one of those, check the sky to make sure no phantoms have spawned, and hop my way back down here. Okay, perfect. Looks like we didn't spawn any this time. Good. Okay, let's get on with the rest of the farm. We need to put water streams on each of these sections here, and I brought enough wood with me that we could make some trapdoors so that I can put trapdoors either side of these platforms, making sure that there's a section down the center for mobs to fall into the water streams we're going to be placing here. We're actually going to go to the extra expense of placing some trapdoors in between these here and there, and the reason for that is that sometimes mobs, if they're in the water streams, will end up flowing to one side and then getting caught on the edges of the trapdoors. So we basically want a smooth passage for them to float all the way down here once these water streams are in place, like so, one there and one there, and that should mean that this entire thing is a channel that they will be directed straight into the center of the farm. And it does look like we are going to need more trapdoors after all. I wasn't quite sure how many to make, hadn't planned that out ahead of time, but it does look like we're going to need quite a few. Man, all of this cobblestone placing and phantom fighting is hungry work. Luckily, the farm up here is growing splendidly well. We should be able to replant a lot of this wheat. We've also got a couple of melons up here that I can slice up and have a snack. And thankfully, our first pumpkin has grown as well, so we can even turn that into more seeds. Should be able to grow a few more of those. Perfect. Okay, and the melons are regrowing as we speak. Fantastic. Having spent the rest of that day farming a little bit more melon and mining a little bit more cobble, we should hopefully have enough to finish off this farm. One thing I really want to do before I do that, though, is come all the way back down to the platform at the bottom of the world here, hop out of the water stream safely, and put down a couple of blocks here and a couple of slabs onto which the mobs will be falling. This one slab worth of gap here will make sure that we're able to swipe at the mobs without them seeing me, and hopefully that should be enough to guarantee that they get taken out without any further problems. Creepers, of course, are going to be the main concern here, because if one of them spots me, they could potentially start to charge up and explode, so we're going to have to make sure that we stay a couple of blocks back from this platform to make sure that we don't meet eye level with creepers, because if you're right up close to the platform here, they can probably see you. So, with that taken care of, I think it's probably time to finish off the rest of these platforms, get the rest of the trapdoors in, and then slab off the roof to make sure that no light is going to get in, even during the day. But that is the farm all closed up. It's looking a little bit darker up here than it used to. All of the torches have been taken out, and the whole thing looks a little bit like the playing card suit for Club from the top down, or some sort of like fractal Mandelbrot set kind of looking thing. But anyway, we should now be able to take out the platform leading to the farm, head down to the level of the void, and hopefully at this stage, when we are down this far in the world, we should start to see mobs spawning inside the farm. And the sun is rising in the distance, but we can already start to see the first few mobs making their way down inside the farm, and that has worked splendidly well. All I should need to do is walk up here with my sword, give them a few swift taps, and we are farming mobs by the bucket load. This is a surprisingly effective method of farming mobs. We even got a spider briefly landed in there before it took off up the tube again, and I think one of the most effective things for me to do here is going to be to create a platform of slabs around the outside of this tube, which I can walk on to collect the drops. We're also getting witches spawning in this farm, and of course the witches are going to be providing us with some extra special drops. What I'm really on the lookout for here is stuff like iron from zombies and redstone from witches. Having all of those available to us is going to be pretty essential to our survival here in Skyblock, at least in the early stages of the game before we can make some of the more industrial scale farms, and I think for now this is going to be a pretty effective one. So I can walk around the sides of the farm here, pick up the remaining drops through the corners. We already have enough bone meal to start tree farming in earnest. We already have a projectile protection chain chest plate. We also have a bow here and another bow here that we could combine it with. We got a bit of arrows on the go as well. This is working splendidly well. And of course, we won't be using these resources to their full effect for a little while. We're not going to really be able to do all that much with the gunpowder, but the bone meal is going to mean farming becomes a whole lot easier. The witch drops are going to be very worthwhile. We'll get a bit of gravel from the zombies, and hopefully we'll get some iron sooner or later as well. And I think that is our first string drop as well, which is going to be very, very helpful when we want to make a bed. We're already getting tons of bows and stuff through as well. And yeah, the string is going to take a little while longer to accumulate in a big enough quantity for it to be useful because, like I said, the spiders tend to pathfind around this farm instead of really getting caught down in it. They tend to climb up the tube when they fall down here finally, and it's going to take a little while for stuff like that to come through. And oh, we got some more glowstone from these witches as well. That's looking great. But since we are recording all of this using the replay mod, I can actually take you inside the farm with night vision mode enabled, and we can see what's happening in here. So each of these 3x3 platforms is going to spawn a bunch of mobs when we are an adequate distance away. It's also going to spawn a lot of bats, as you can see, because this is a dark farm below sea level, but there's not really much we can do about that, and you won't really see the bats interfering with things in any way. What you will see is the mobs starting to walk off of these 3x3 platforms of their own accord, and sometimes even pushing the other mobs off into the water streams as they do so. And sometimes they'll walk on the trapdoors around the outside, but that's just an unforeseen consequence of the way this works. And the way it works is that mobs will try and target a nearby solid block to naturally pathfind to, as just part of the wandering movement that they have when they are near enough to the player that AI can take effect. And what's happening here, of course, is that the mobs are targeting a solid block that is across the room from them, and they think they can get to it by walking over the trapdoors. But since the trapdoors are open, the mobs are able to fall through into the water streams, where they will typically be carried away by the water. Sometimes they resist it a little bit if they're trying to pathfind to a block that's in the opposite direction, but sooner or later they give up on trying to pathfind to that block, and the water pushes them down into the killing mechanism of the farm. Now, spiders, of course, are a bit of an exception to this. We've covered their ability to walk up walls, but typically they will end up getting pushed around by the other mobs anyway, and once they're in the water streams, they find it difficult to get up above the level of the trapdoors again, meaning that they'll typically get pushed around by the water streams and end up in the farm anyway. One other really important thing about this farm, although obviously we can't do a great deal about it right now, is that in there you will find that zombie villagers are also spawning, and we'll end up doing something with those a little bit later on. Converting villagers once we have some golden apples and weakness potions is going to be essential to our later sort of mid to late game strategy here in Skyblock. It's how we're going to get stuff like diamond tools and armor, is all by curing villagers. So having a good mob farm to start off with is one of the basics, but one of the essentials. And without the need to build anything more advanced in this world, we already have a ton of resources that we're looking at, almost like a full stack of gunpowder and nearly a full stack of bones. We've got bows, we've got arrows, gravel can be used to make renewable dirt, of course, so that's going to be hugely beneficial to us as well. I think all of this is going splendidly well. I think my goal here, though, is actually to get enough string to make ourselves a bed, and we are 1/3 of the way there already, because we can turn 4 string into a block of wool, and from there we can make ourselves a bed without even having to worry about spawning in any sheep. One other thing I hadn't considered, but that is very useful about this farm, is that occasionally mobs will drop with golden armor, and having some golden leggings means that piglins, when I return to the nether eventually, are not going to be aggro on me because I'm wearing a piece of gold. And the fact that we can obtain gold that easily is also hugely beneficial. We could even, if we want to, farm this spawner for long enough that we get enough gold armor to make gold nuggets and then convert those into gold ingots, and that can be the first thing that we trade with piglins. Of course, we might end up making a zombie piglin farm at some point, but it is still a very nice prospect to have. And we also have our first potato dropped by a zombie, our first zombie rare drop. That's going to be very useful as well. We're going to start a farm with those, and with all of the bone meal that we've got, we can be farming potatoes in earnest. Now, I've just broken my sword farming all of these mobs, so I'm just going to go ahead and punch a few more of them, but I think we have proven our point, and that is probably where we are going to wrap up today's episode. I'm going to go make myself another stone sword and do a little bit of farming off camera to see if we can get our first iron ingot drop or our first drop of redstone from the witch that spawned in the farm, and they will occasionally drink health potions. Yes, there it is, our first redstone. Didn't even have to wait all that long. Fantastic. Well, that's potentially going to be used as part of a piston component so that we can make ourselves a slightly more effective cobblestone generator, but we need to get an iron ingot for that, of course. We have a potion of healing there as well. Very nice. Well, I was just about to wrap up the episode, and I think we will call it there. Clearly, this mob farm is a force to be reckoned with, and hopefully you'll find it useful to build in your own Skyblock worlds. Thank you so much for watching this Skyblock 1.16 episode. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.